attack on the country. Julie Platt of Jewish Federations of North America explains why people are there.
To express their solidarity with Israel, to speak out loudly against anti-Semitism, and to make it clear that we must bring the hostages home. We dreamed of how many people might come, and this will far exceed our wildest dreams. There are people all the way down the National Mall. We needed to come together, and they showed up. And we are so thrilled to create this community for the North American Jewish community.
A bipartisan group of senators is introducing a resolution that warns Iran against expanding the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Increased threats have led the U.S. to have more of a presence in the Mediterranean Sea. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham spoke about the resolution today.
If Iran continues to threaten our troops in Syria and Iraq, the right response militarily would be, in my view, to hit the IRGC training bases and infrastructure inside of Iran.
Graham also says the U.S. should hit Iran if Hezbollah ramps up attacks along the northern border of Israel. The House holds a hearing of the Subcommittee on Higher Education and Workforce to discuss the rise of anti-Semitism in higher education. Utah Congressman Burgess Owens speaking at the hearing.
What is the core of this problem? A gang of face-covering, cowardly bullies who feel no shame and feel no sphere of accountability from college administrators.
Employees at the State Department have sent a scathing letter to President Biden, demanding that he stop supporting Israel and accuse the country of war crimes. Steve Jordahl reports.
The letter was signed by 100 State Department and USAID employees and accuses President Biden of, quote, spreading misinformation in a speech he gave on October 10th, although the letter provided no specific examples. It says Israel is committing crimes against humanity in the prosecution of the war. Gary Bauer of American Values says the State Department has a long history of anti-Semitism.
The sad fact is that the State Department, when it comes to Israel, has had its own foreign policy for probably since the creation of the modern state of Israel.
He says when Biden took office, State Department liberals started showing the anti-Israel bias that had lain low during the Trump administration.
When Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won, they all thought that he was going to be reliably anti-Israel, and I suspect he would be if he wasn't in some political difficulty.
But in the days that followed the October 7th terror attack, Bauer says the Biden White House knew that there was no option whatsoever than to be vehemently on the side of Israel.
They also knew that as time went on, the images of that terrible day would begin to disappear, and the constant news coverage of civilians dying in Gaza would begin to undermine support for Israel.
So he says the recent letter is unsurprising.
I think Israel will discover that this White House is a very thin reed to rely on if you're expecting help from Washington, D.C.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
Overall inflation was unchanged from September to October, down from the 0.4% jump the previous month. Compared with 12 months ago, consumer prices rose 3.2% in October. For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Can we trust the Bible?
He says, we saw this, and that sets the Bible apart from almost everything else in the ancient world and its religious pantheon of gods and goddesses.
The God Who Speaks, the important documentary from the American Family Association, is now available to watch for free on AFA's brand new streaming platform. Go to thegodwhospeaks.org to watch this award-winning film today. thegodwhospeaks.org. We inform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We equip.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to At the Core with Walker Wildman and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Thanks for joining me on this Tuesday afternoon as we tackle a lot of the headlines out there today and take a biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective on those things. I'll try to hit some of the good, the bad, and the ugly today. I'm going to start with Speaker Johnson and his budget strategy and just tell you right up front, no, I do not agree. I love this guy. I'm glad he's our speaker. I will give him the benefit of the doubt that, because of who he is and my trust in him because of the things that he's done over the last 20 years, that he's got some plan that I can't see, but I just don't get agreeing to any kind of continuing resolution. Throw the gauntlet down right now and demand the big cuts and demand the concessions, or shut the government down. We've said it a million times here. Shut the government down. The federal government is doing so many things it's not supposed to be doing anyway. Frankly, I love Vivek Ramaswamy's idea to on day one, cut the federal workforce in half, 50% fired day one. And you do it legally by doing it indiscriminately based on Social Security number. Get an odd number or even, take your pick, flip a coin, and half the workforce gone. Half the federal, they don't work much. Half the federal sit-around force, most of the time they're just causing trouble. They're a burden on the American people, not a blessing, because they're outside their lane. And if you cut them in half, if you had half as many people working for the federal government overnight, just think of the boon to the American economy because of the lack of regulation. Now, I get it. Yes, of course. Then you got all those people out there looking for jobs. Well, great. There's competition. How many of them will start businesses? How many of them will be willing to go, clean some toilets and do some actual real work that needs to be done? How much would that help with our immigration problems and issues? Anyway, that's a whole other topic with that idea. But my point is the government can be shut down for weeks, and we wouldn't even notice. Wouldn't even be an issue. And, of course, when they say that, I am fully recognizing that a quote-unquote shutdown is not an actual shutdown. They don't actually shut everything down. They have all kinds of emergency provisions for all of the absolutely necessary things, national defense. We're not talking about telling the military to go home. But it makes them cut the fat. It makes them decide who's, how about this word? It makes them decide who's essential. How about that? What if the government had to make that decision of who in their department is essential instead of making the free market decide? Actually, not even get to decide. They decided for us who was quote unquote essential in the absurd COVID crackdowns that had much more to do with power than the actual virus. At any rate, I, of course, continue to support shutting down the government rather than continuing to go trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. They are going to destroy this nation. We are reaching the point of no return economically. Something drastic has to be done. And so I do not support the idea of just doing these continuing resolutions. Now, from what I can tell, Speaker Johnson has a game plan. So he's got some plan that has him going through the 11 or 12, whatever it is, different budgets between now and I think the second week of January. And I understand what he has put out. And his statement, I think, makes sense in a vacuum when he says, you can't change these decades and decades and decades of bad decision-making and budgeting and all that in just a couple of weeks. They need time to fix this. And so I get that's the reason I'm saying I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He just took over, right? And so he has to step into this situation, and it's massive. It's obviously massive. $1 trillion. We can't even fathom that. We're talking about a $7 trillion budget. So it's impossible to get our heads around the number of items, the amount of money, all of the pressure from all the different groups, which is why we had a Constitution in the first place. It's why they're only supposed to be doing those 17 things in the Constitution instead of these 17 million things they're doing that they shouldn't be doing. And that's why I say drastic measures, stop the insanity. However, look, he's been given the gavel. He's been given the ability to make these decisions. So, we're going to see how this plays out. I'm just going on record saying I would much rather it just be a full stop. But he's probably smarter than me, to be honest. And he's definitely looking at a lot of stuff that I don't have a clue on. And so he's got the inside baseball. He's literally in the room. And I've always said this. I've always said you got to trust your guy in the room. At some point, you got to trust the people that you've supported to be in the room in the negotiations. I remember this going all the way back to was it my first term or second term? I can't remember now. I think it was my first term. Excuse me, in the Texas legislature, and we're negotiating parental notification for an abortion. By the way, if you're watching on camera, that's a Topo Chico. That's not a beer. I noticed myself taking a drink of that Topo Chico, and it looked like a Corona or something. Anyway, it's Topo Chico. Let me make sure I show that to the folks watching at home on camera. Really good water. Okay, so anyway, I'm in the. It's probably the first time that's ever been said on American Family Radio. So I'm in the Texas House, first term, figuring this stuff out. I'm a freshman. And my buddy Phil King is also a freshman. In fact, we tied for freshman of the year that year. I'm still demanding a recount. Great guy, good friend. And we were trying to get parental notification on abortion. Now put yourself in the time machine, go all the way back to 1999, and Texas had never passed anything pro-life. I mean, we were no better than most states. Democrats had controlled it, so, abortion was rampant. And so we were trying to get a baby step, and the baby step we were trying to get was if a minor is going to get an abortion, there has to at least be notification to the parents. It wasn't even parental consent. I mean, we were just trying to get one pro-life piece of legislation passed, parental notification, which ultimately we did. Ultimately it led to parental consent, then ultimately to informed consent. So those baby steps over the years worked and eventually got heartbeat and all that good stuff. So put yourself, though, in the time machine, go back those 2 decades, and we're scratching and clawing to get this little bitty piece of pro-life legislation, just one victory that could save some babies and at least require that if your daughter is going in for a medical procedure like that, where your grandbaby is going to be killed and your daughter is going to be put at all kinds of health risks, you should know about it as a parent. And so that's what we were trying to get past. And bottom line is the left and the Democrats were digging in. We were pushing hard. And our guy in the room ended up, basically our person in the room ended up asking my friend Phil King to take over the negotiations, even as a freshman. And so Phil steps in and does a phenomenal job and manages to get us a deal to pass parental notification. And while our side wanted to have significant penalties for a doctor that violated that law, so in other words, there was no law at the time. Doctors could do abortions on minors all they wanted, no repercussions. We were passing a law that said, okay, if you do an abortion on a minor, you have to notify the parent first. And then the punishment, we obviously would love to have had jail time, all right, if you violate that, but there was no way we were going to get that passed. And the best we could get in the negotiations to get this thing passed, actually get a pro-life piece of legislation on the books, was, if I remember right, again, 25 years ago, if I remember right, it was a $10,000 fine. So a significant fine, but just money, right? It's just money. I'm not kidding you. This bill comes up, so we get it out of negotiations, get it out of committee, get it onto the House floor. I walk out on the House floor that day, and we would always have, flyers and basically pieces of lobbying papers that people would hand us in the lobby on the way in. That, by the way, that's why you call them lobbyists, because they literally stand in the lobby. I never realized that until I was a rep. And every morning when you're walking to the House floor, you're accosted by hundreds of lobbyists literally in the lobby, trying to give you a last minute, please vote this way on this bill, or hey, take a look at this, or look this over before you vote. Well, I get to my desk that day to excited about the fact we're going to have our first piece of pro-life legislation. And there's a flyer, a piece of paper on my desk that says if you vote yes on parental notification, if you vote yes on what is a pro-life bill, first piece of pro-life legislation we ever had a chance to pass, it will be recorded as a pro-abortion vote by all these, conservative groups, quote-unquote pro-life groups, because it doesn't have enough punishment for the doctor. In other words, because we can't get everything that we want, we're going to say that you're actually with the other side, that you're pro-abort, that you're for abortion. I couldn't believe it. I was so livid. I was so mad because they were literally our own people. Our own side was undermining us and going to completely turn the tables. I mean, like, it's one thing to say, well, Rick's a sellout because he didn't get us everything that we wanted. He's just too wimpy. That's one thing. But to say he's actually pro-abortion because he didn't give us that's ridiculous. And it has no faith in the people that you've actually campaigned for, gotten elected to be the representative for you on this issue. I mean, no faith that we were, in fact, getting everything we could at that time with that legislature. So with the particular people we had in a Democrat majority, the Dems controlled everything. And yet here we were about to get a piece of pro-life legislation passed, and they threaten us with they're going to record it as, which what that means is then in the next election when we go home, all of our people that are pro-life that elected us because they, wanted a pro-life rep are now going to think we're pro-abortion, which is not true, but that's how they'll perceive it because the pro-life, voter guides come out. I just could not believe it. And what it all boiled down to is not trusting the guy in the room that you have put your faith in to negotiate the deal for you, that they're getting all they can get, that they're getting half the loaf today and will come back and fight for the other half tomorrow. I believe in that philosophy. I know that in politics, it is the art of compromise. You will not get everything you want, and you have to figure out how to get as much as you can and still be able to come back tomorrow and fight for more. And that was, my friend Phil King negotiated the best deal we could possibly get, and I was in favor of that deal. I wanted parental notification passed, and I trusted him in the room to be getting everything that we could possibly get, and yet these other folks did not. And so I learned from that lesson. I learned from that, and so that's why I say I don't on the outside agree with kicking the can down the road, which is the way I perceive it, by doing the continuing resolution. However, I'm going to trust the guy in the room. I'm going to give him a chance here. Now, if somebody burns you and you find out later they could have got more, or they just end up doing the same old thing and we're back to, oh, wow, he's just like McCarthy, or he's just like Boehner, or he's just like whoever. If that happens, then come January, come February, you're going to hear me say, okay, we gave him a chance. Listen, we gave him a chance, and he didn't get it done. And so, not going to give him the benefit of the doubt anymore at that point. But right now, absolutely, I'm going to give Speaker Johnson the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say I don't like it, but I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to trust that he's going to get the best that he can with the votes that he's got. Now, don't forget, the guy's got a 5-vote majority. I mean, he barely has a majority in the House, and we don't have the Senate. So he's going to have to negotiate against the Senate, including wimpy Republicans over on the Senate that are, I guarantee you, selling him out right now, and, of course, the White House. So he's up against it. I get it. I mean, this is an impossible situation that we're asking for something to be done, but he has the opportunity to demand at least something. So we're going to see what he gets out of the deal over these couple of months where he's breaking this up into the various budget fights instead of having one big bill that everybody can light up like a Christmas tree. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see what's going to happen, and I'm going to trust the guy in the room for a little while. Now, my buddy Bob McEwen, former congressman from Ohio, I'll borrow his saying here. He always says, never trust any politician any further than you can throw them over your shoulder left-handed. I love all the extras in there, right? Shout out to Bob. So that means when I say I trust the guy in the room, it's the Ronald Reagan thing. Trust but verify. So while I'm giving him some rope here, we're going to see what happens. And I'm praying that there's enough other good people that will come alongside him there in the House that we're going to end up with at least some cuts and some decent deals here and changing the way Washington operates. That's the key. All right, folks, we're going to have to take a break. The phone number, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. We'll be back with more headlines in a moment. You're listening to At the Core.
Ah, sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, offspring of evildoers, children who deal corruptly. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. According to a recent survey conducted by Redfield and Wilson Strategies, on behalf of Newsweek, nearly half of millennials, 25 to 34-year-olds, believe misgendering a person should be a criminal offense. That's right, 44% of the millennial respondents think referring to someone by the wrong pronoun should be punished with jail time. 31% of millennials disagree with that idea. But alarmingly, the remaining 25% said they didn't know what they thought about the idea. the land of the free has cultivated an upcoming generation that embraces thought policing. We've entered Huxley's brave new world.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, public policy analyst for the American Family Association.
In this new world, on this new day, we rejoice that Roe v. Wade has been overturned. Preborn has been preparing for this moment for the past 16 years by positioning their clinics in the top 6 abortion states where 50% of abortions occur. Sadly, 5 of these 6 states will continue to abort babies at an even greater level. And since the abortion pill accounts for over 50% of abortions, babies are even more at risk. Preborn pregnancy clinics are completely dependent on you as they offer life-saving ultrasounds and the life-saving gospel to moms and babies in crisis.
When I heard her heartbeat, I decided to keep her. And now my daughter's about to be 3. I don't know where my life would be without her.
To learn how you can be a part of rescuing babies' lives and sharing the heart of Jesus, go to preborn.com or dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby.
Hey friends, it's Jessica Peck, Dr. Nurse Mama, as your 1-minute parenting coach. Is your house known as the hangout house for your kids and their friends? You might say, no, my house isn't big enough, or we aren't set up to entertain, or I'm really not the cool parent, but those aren't good excuses. Kids today need a safe and comfortable place for in-person socialization. Make your house an open invitation anytime. Open your fridge and pantry to help themselves. Don't worry about your house being messy. Have you seen your kids' rooms? They don't care. Be real and engage them in conversation, being authentically awkward. Invite them into your family space to join you in what you're doing. You never know what a lifeline that might be. I'll see you on the Dr. Nurse Mama radio show right here on American Family Radio.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Rick Green.
Welcome back to At the Core with Walker Wildman and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Thanks for staying with me here on this Tuesday. I've been talking about Speaker Johnson and the budget battle. I will say, I just want to read one tweet here from my friend Chip Roy, who is, I think, frankly, one of the best congressmen maybe Texas has ever sent to Washington, D.C. I mean, this guy gets it, and he's great at strategy. Chip has always been, he thinks steps ahead, and he has the backbone, absolute incredible backbone. I mean, enough backbone to make a freight train take a dirt road. And here's what he said. The status quo spending levels are a fiscal death spiral. The status quo allows open borders to be run by cartels to kill and endanger Texans. We are teetering on the edge, and I will not support more of the same. Cut spending, secure the border. So what he has said all along is absolutely no funding unless you secure the border, and made that the one thing that should be the top of the negotiation. And I've said that here on the program. Absolutely agree with that. That's why, like I said, I don't agree with the speaker's strategy here. I think that should have been the gauntlet thrown down, secure the border, or we have no continuing resolution, and that's what Chip is reflecting there. So it's, difficult situation for sure. We'll see what comes of it. Okay, there was one other thing I wanted to mention from Capitol Hill before I move on to some other subjects, and it's actually a hearing. I think it was yesterday. It might have been day before. It might have been Friday before the weekend, but I think it was yesterday. And it was a hearing that I think Marjorie Taylor Greene had to do with some of the COVID responses and all those things. But it was Senator Ron Johnson that went over. Maybe it was a joint hearing. Anyway, I saw the video of them sitting there together. So it was Senate and House members together. Anyway, he shared a chart, and I think this tweet that I saw is correct. Senator Johnson shares the most censored chart in congressional history. In other words, nobody wants to talk about this. And it's the drug adverse event comparisons for the last, what is this? This would be 27 years, okay? Top drug adverse event drugs in the last 27 years. And here's what they are. Okay, so these aren't all the top ones. This is just comparing some of them. The flu vaccine, 220,346 adverse events. Now, these are reported, folks, so this is only what's in the VAERS system. Recognize that this is usually about, maybe one-tenth of what is actually out there. But this is what's actually reported, so it's a fair comparison to those that were reported. At least it's relative to each one. You could multiply all of these by 10, probably. Okay, Tylenol, 136,000. Remdesivir, 9,000. And ivermectin, 4,265. HCQ, I'm assuming, is hydroxychloroquine. I'm not sure, but 28,823. But then here's the point. COVID vaccines, 1,605,764. And that's the adverse events. The deaths, 36,501. Again, that's just reported. We know from all kinds of interviews and data and research that most doctors don't report to VAERS. They'll deny that it was the vaccine that caused something, and so they don't report it. So anyway, I just think that's very interesting that a United States senator is bringing that to the attention of the world. Very few people will cover that, but that's just amazing. 1,605,000 adverse events, including 36,501 deaths reported. It's probably 10 times that, and we'll never get the full truth on that one. Okay, I've got a topic I've just got to address. It's okay. I'm going to admit it's a little bit personal because Texas is in the middle of this fight, but a lot of states are considering this particular issue, and it is the issue that made me run for the legislature all those years ago in 1990. So, 7 was when I started running. 98 was when I got elected. And I'd love to hear from you on this, okay? So write the phone number down, 888-589-8840, because there is much debate and disagreement in conservative circles. So I know that many of you that are listening right now are going to disagree with me today. And so I want to have some iron sharpening iron opportunities here for us to sharpen each other's countenance. I would love to hear from you, and I would love for us to just compare notes, because this is the Patrick Henry thing of, according to the magnitude of the subject, ought to be the freedom of the debate. Only in this way can we arrive at the truth. Should I hold back my opinions out of fear of giving offense, I would offend the great creator of the universe. So I will not hold back my opinion. I don't care if I offend you, and I want you to not care if you offend me. So please call in and give me your opinion on this. And here is the topic: school choice. Should parents have the ability to redirect dollars that have been funneled through the government? In other words, we call them tax dollars, but they're our dollars. So should the American people, should our money that we are being forced to give to the government, should parents be able to slice away some of that and direct it where they want for their child to be educated? Okay, that's the fundamental question of school choice. Now, I realize there's a lot of issues to be considered here. The number one reason that people tell me no, that are like-minded, that are pro-Constitution, pro-biblical, pro-family, all that good stuff, is that it will cause regulation to be forced upon homeschooling in private schools. That if we have school choice, then we will end up with more regulation on homeschool and private school. So we'll address that. We have to talk about that. The number two reason is that they don't want to see government funding schools at all. That they don't want any taxpayer money going into education. Let the market decide. Now, in a perfect world, I might could get on board with that. I think from a philosophical, economic, we could look at all of that and say, yes, that makes more sense. Government shouldn't be the one controlling all this. But from a practical perspective, that's impossible. Okay, there's zero chance, like zero, not even like 0.00001. There is zero chance that you are going to get government out of the education business. Okay, you can get the federal government out of the education business because it's unconstitutional for them to be involved anyway. So there is an absolute argument for that. That didn't even start until the 1970s. So we can absolutely go back to federal government has nothing to do with education. But state government is absolutely going to be involved in education. Local government, absolutely. We're going to have government involvement in schools. You go look at any state constitution, and it actually explains why. Because you need an informed populace. You need people to understand civics. You need people to understand reading, writing, and arithmetic. And now, I understand, I get that public schools are not doing that right now. They're doing a lousy job of all of those things and almost a zero job on teaching civics. But that doesn't change the fact that that was the reason those schools were created, and frankly, to study the Bible. Doesn't change the fact that that's why they were created, and that purpose is still, important. And that, again, we can debate that part. That's another rabbit trail that we could go down. This could take several programs to get through this topic. But right now, that's not even on the table, right? The government is involved in education, okay? It's funneling our money. It's literally the broker of our dollars, and billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars are being taken from us and going through government into education. Right now, all of that money, virtually all of that money, goes to public education, the monopoly on education. So another rabbit trail we could go down is, do economic principles actually play out in a subject like education? Are they universal? In other words, if it's a principle, if economic principles like supply and demand, if those are just laws of nature, nature's God type principles that don't change, then do they apply to something like education? My argument would be absolutely yes, right? Like, if you have a monopoly on something like the public school education system does, then you're not going to produce as good a product as when there is a competitor down the road. If there's somebody that can say to that parent, for the same amount of money or for less money, I will give your kid a better education. I will take your kid and put them into a school where they don't have to fight off guns and gangs. I will put your kid in a school where the teachers are not allowed to groom children and talk about sex and all the things that they're doing in public schools. In our school, if you bring your money, notice what I'm saying here, your money, if you bring your money that the government is going to let you keep to spend on your child's education, if you bring it here, we won't do all those things that the public school is doing right now that's actually making it impossible for your kid to get a good education, and also is undermining everything that you're teaching that child at home or at church. At our school, we won't do those things. What do you think people are going to do? They're going to, not everybody, because a lot of parents, let's be nice, are stupid. I'm sorry. Okay, it wasn't nice, but it's just being blunt. I mean, a lot of parents just, they don't care. There's no question that that's the case in some cases. I don't think that's the case in most people. I think most parents care about their kids. I think most parents want their child to get a good education. I think most parents are not left-wing hacks that think it's more important for their child to learn Marxist philosophy than it is for them to learn reading, writing, arithmetic, and civics. So I think most parents are going to look at that and go, wait, you mean I get to choose which school my kid goes to? Instead of my kid has to go to the school where they're grooming, where they're, allowing all this crazy stuff. Instead of having to go there because I can't afford to send my kids somewhere else, I can't afford to pay twice for education. And every parent in America, you're paying for the public school education whether you like it or not. I don't care if you rent, you're paying property taxes in that rent. Every time you buy something at the store, some of your sales taxes go into that. All kinds of your taxes are going to that education. So you're paying for it. And then you had, not only does that come out of your check and cause you to have less money to take home, but then if you want to have any other option for your kid's education, you have to come up with more money out of your pocket to then turn around and pay for a private school or homeschool or whatever it might be. And most people can't do that. And so what school choice does is it says to that parent, okay, look, we're not going to let you take all the money, but we're going to set you up with an education savings account. So we're basically going to take, for easy math in Texas, it's $10,000. Now we spend about $18,000 in public schools, but we're going to give you $10,000 of that in a savings account, and you get to go spend it on the education of your child however you want. You can do private school, you can do Catholic school, you can do a secular private school, you can do a charter school, you can do whatever. I think the bill in Texas, unfortunately, only gives $1,000 to homeschoolers. I think it should be the same for everybody, but let's just, for easy discussion of whether or not school choice is even a good idea, say that they let you take $10,000 even if you were homeschooling. However you want to educate your kid, whatever school has the best chance of making your kid learn to read, write, do arithmetic, and understand civics, the parent decides which school is best for their kid rather than the politicians. So there's a fundamental question. Who should decide the educational upbringing of a child? The state or the parent? I think I know the parent should be the one to decide that. So if that's true, and we let the parent take that $10,000 and now send their kid to a Christian school or a Muslim school or a completely secular school, but the parent decides which school is best for their kid. And maybe they want their kid to go to a school that doesn't have sports programs because they want all the money going into the classroom. Okay, great. That's their choice, right? Maybe they want their kid to go to some sort of special gifted and talented school for musicians, and that kid gets to spend half the day working on their musical talent and half the day working on reading, writing, arithmetic, and civics, and they're able to get that done. Maybe their kid is a super athlete, and they want them to go to a school where they can get really good workouts in and really good one-on-one training and all that kind of stuff. The parent decides. Okay, so if the parent decides to do that, here's where the big opposition comes in. Most people right there would say, yes, I want the parent to be able to decide. But here's where the opposition from our side comes in. The other side, it's all about, oh, you're going to hurt the public schools. Oh, you're going to break the bank of the public schools. Oh, you know what? I don't care about the name on the building. I care about the kid getting educated. So as long as we'd still be educating the child, the question is just which building do they get educated in? Let's stop protecting institutions and start doing what that money's supposed to do, educating children. Okay, so the argument from the left about you're going to hurt public schools, first of all, is false. Everywhere school choice has been done, the public school got better. The public school did a better job of educating kids. Why? Well, we talked about earlier, competition. Okay, but I don't even care about the left's arguments. This is a family discussion here among conservatives and people that actually, from our side, the argument I usually get is, yeah, but if you do that, now there's going to be strings attached to the money. The government's going to come in and regulate the curriculum for the private school or the homeschooler. Okay, so let me be clear. I oppose that. I don't want any regulation. I don't want any government control of the curriculum for your child that goes to a private school or a homeschool. And what prevents that is more school choice. All right, let me explain why. Because once you have school choice, now you go from a very small percentage of that state that's passing that, in this case Texas, a very small percentage that opposes regulation of homeschools and private schools. Only those that are currently homeschooling and private schooling, right? That small percentage, we manage to fight it every year. Like that was one of my main things in the legislature, not allowing regulation of homeschoolers, okay? And we're able to defeat it, but sometimes it's a tough fight. Okay, but that's done with our small lobby, our very small group percentage of people that are actually homeschooling or private schooling are the ones that fight off regulation of homeschooling and private schooling. You do school choice, and now you absolutely explode the number of people that will join us in fighting against regulation of homeschooling and private schooling. Because all these new people are now on our team. We just pulled all of these people, all these families, out of the public schools into private schools, homeschoolers, and all that, and now they are going to join us in preventing regulation of homeschooling and private schooling. So just from a practical how politics works, this is actually the best way to prevent regulation of homeschooling and private schooling. If you don't do school choice, and you keep us four and no more, then eventually you're going to lose those political battles because the state can regulate you anytime they want, anytime the legislators decide. So the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. We just have to constantly fight off that kind of stuff, and school choice gives us more people to help fight off those things. Okay, so we're going to go further down these rabbit trails. Got several phone calls already in the queue on this subject, and maybe we'll continue it on Thursday if I can't get it all in the third segment. But give me a call, 888-589-8840. We're talking school choice. Should parents be able to take some of their money, meaning our money, meaning the people's money, and redirect the education dollars to the school of their choice rather than only the public school? Stay with us, folks. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. You're listening to At the Core with Walker Wildman and Rick Green.
Too busy to catch your favorite shows on the radio? Have no fear, because the AFR app is here. Download the app to have access to live broadcast, music streaming, as well as each podcast. Whether you're at work, at home, or on the go, it's easy to listen to AFR.
The AFR app is available not only for Apple and Android users, but also on Amazon Alexa and Roku.
Download the AFR app today at afr.net.
What does the American Family Association stand for?
We believe that our ministry, as well as everything in the heavens and on earth, belongs to God, and our role is that of a trusted manager.
These values and more are part of our mission to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of our culture. We also support the church. We want to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training for cultural transformation. Thank you for standing with us.
You know, one of the most significant men in human history is George Washington. Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. In fact, the argument could be made that George Washington was the most significant figure in the last 1,000 years on planet Earth. Why? Because without George Washington, there would be no United States of America. We're going to visit the home of George Washington, Mount Vernon, when we go in June and September to see Washington, D.C., including Mount Vernon. We're also going to Colonial Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown as well. So information on these tours is available at the following website, spiritualheritagetours.com. Again, June and September, you choose which one, spiritualheritagetours.com for all the information, and we'd love to have you join us.
I've got to look up the Davison's number.
Oh, I know it. It's 333.
We memorize all the time.
So if you take I-630 to exit 41, then turn left at Dippy Burger.
We remember information that we use or think about a lot.
No, that movie was directed by Frank Capra. It came before It's a Wonderful Life.
So why does it seem so hard to memorize the most important things?
I am so bad at memorizing scripture.
Yeah, I just can't remember it.
Memorizing the Word of God will cleanse and renew your mind. It'll help keep you from sin. It'll help you say no to your flesh. And it will protect you from wrong thinking patterns. You can memorize more than you realize.
Okay, I'll quiz you first. Let me hear it.
Psalm 119:97. Oh, how I love your law. It is my meditation all the day.
With Seeking Him, I'm Nancy DeMoss Walkamuth.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Rick Green.
Welcome back to At the Core with Walker Wildman and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Thanks for staying with me. Speaking of that, memorizing the Bible, if you were listening during the break there, Bible Bee competition, really, really cool thing. Friends of mine do, and I'm going to push for my grandkids to start doing this. They're just about old enough, and I actually emceed it one year, and I was blown away. So what you just heard, you can memorize more than you think you can, 100% true. And these kids, I'm telling you, man, I mean like 9 and 10-year-olds getting up and doing hundreds of verses from, completely from memory and just passionate, and their heart is in it. It's a really, really cool thing. So anyway, I'm just thinking about that as I heard that. I encourage you to check that out. It's they won't start registration for next year's competition until I think sometime in the spring. But what a great way to get your kid memorizing stuff. Bible Bee, BibleBee.org, I think is where you can learn more about them. But great program. Okay, back to school choice. This is a hotly debated topic typically among my friends because the conservative community is split, and those who are against it, again, it's all about they're worried about regulation, and I'm a free market guy. I have faith in the market. If you let parents take those dollars and go spend them wherever they want, even if the state comes in and starts trying to regulate, the market will create options. So you'll have public schools, fully regulated. You'll have private schools that take the money and potentially get regulated, and then you'll have private schools that don't take any money. And so the market will decide, and you can decide where you want to go and take your child, and you get to decide whether or not you take the money. So I always tell folks, it's up to you. Err on the side of freedom. Okay, I could say this is a hot topic for me. I love this topic. I could ramble on for hours, but let's go to the phones. First one is in Alabama. Renee, if I'm reading that right. Renee in Alabama, you're up first. Go ahead.
Hey, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for calling in.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. First off, I want to say you had said something about curriculum. the curriculum is already determined by your your teachers union. So I think that needs to be addressed, the teachers union, because that's where a lot of this sexualization is coming from.
Yeah.
But I am absolutely 100% for the school choice, because then that way a parent can decide where they want to put that child. If it's a failing school, they can pull that child out and put it in a better school district and make these schools stop some of the stuff that they are doing and not let the parents be at the mercy of the school districts at the point. That's all I had to say. Thank you so much.
Hey, Renee, thank you very much for calling in. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think, and she mentioned the teacher unions. Listen, this is one of the reasons I'm for school choice. It breaks the back of the teacher unions. The teacher unions are horrible, evil, left-wing Marxist organizations. It's not the teachers that you're thinking of. You're thinking of that sweet teacher you had in second grade. How could they possibly be evil and wrong and grooming kids and all that kind of stuff? That's not the teacher unions. Individual teachers on the front lines often are great people. They're wonderful. They chose that profession because they want to, serve, and they want to help, and they love kids and all that good stuff. But the teacher unions are taken over by absolute hacks. I'm talking evil people that want your children. And they control the money. And the money, they literally put billions of dollars. They take money from all the teachers, take it out of their check before they even get their check. They take all their money, not all their money. They take money from all of them, and then they go spend it to elect politicians that will support their ridiculous, evil agenda. And so what this does is it gets more parents to take that money, the school money, and take it away from the schools that are controlled by the teacher unions and put it into schools that are not controlled by the teacher unions. And the people that benefit the most from school choice, well, the kids, of course, they're the ones that are going to benefit the most. But second to them, teachers, because the competition kicks in. Right now, your public school teacher gets paid like an assembly line worker. They're paid the same amount. If they're the best teacher on the campus, they get paid the same amount as the worst teacher on the campus that's been there as long as they have. It has nothing to do with how good they are at their job. So if you're a lousy teacher, you should fear school choice. Absolutely. Because you're going to end up likely out of a job, or you're going to end up at the worst schools because nobody else is going to want you. But if you're a good teacher, you should love school choice because it's going to cause you to make more money. It's going to create a market of competition for you. And therefore, just like in other areas of the free market, you'll be able to make more, and you'll get to choose where you go. You'll get to be at a place that actually values you and honors you for when you do a good job. So anyway, it's good for teachers to have school choice. And for those that don't want it, I always tell my friends that are conservative that are against school choice. I say basically, you're telling me that we should keep funneling the left, that we should keep taking all of our tax dollars that they're going to take from us. Now, if you can stop them from taxing us, great. You tell me that plan, right? But in reality, here on Earth, that's not going to happen. They're going to tax us. And so they're taking all of these billions of dollars and they're giving it every year to these leftists, these absolute radical leftists that hate America. They're undermining our nation. They're winning the culture war because they're educating the children and all this stuff. They're absolutely controlling it. And what you're telling me when you're against school choice is that you refuse to give me or you or other parents the freedom to redirect that money, to actually take some of it, just a little bit of it, and redirect it away from the leftist and the Marxist and the crazy people, and actually move it to someone that's good for your kids and that's actually going to educate your children with values. Now, listen, if you don't want the power to do that, if you don't want to redirect your dollars because you live in fear all the time and you're afraid of government control over everything that they're already controlling anyway, so be it. Don't do it. Don't participate. But how dare you? How dare you claim to be a pro-freedom, pro-constitution, pro-family conservative and then stand in the schoolhouse door and prevent children that need to get out of there and get into a better school from being able to do so? How dare you prevent these kids from being free to get into a better school for them and their family? How dare you decide for me? How dare you decide for that parent that is trapped right now? You're the people that are like that. They're like the do-gooders. You know, they're the well, I just know better. I know better than everybody else, and I'll decide for you. You know, it's almost like with education. They're doing. If they did this with food, these are the people that don't want you to have a big gulp. You know, don't want you to smoke a cigar. Don't want you to be able to do anything that they think that they wouldn't want to do, so they don't want you to do it. Right? It's kind of like they're. You know, think about education this way: the dollars are going to get spent. And you're going to get an education. You know, the kids are going to go to school somewhere, right? In the same way, the dollars on food, that money's going to be spent. Everybody's going to go eat somewhere. And what these people that are against school choice are like, they're like these do-gooders that are controlling your choice on which restaurant you can go eat at. Or when you get to the restaurant, they get to control what you eat or drink. They want to take your money, your tax dollars, and control where they're spent. And they'll let you, order, but the options are prison house slop or prison house slop. Like, that's all you get. And you got to look around and see these other people eating steak because they can afford it, but you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to take your voucher, if you will, your money for education. In this case, I'm using the analogy of food. You're not allowed to take that and choose something else on the menu. You're only given the one option of the lousy school down the street that has a monopoly, and therefore they have no incentive to educate your child. They have no incentive to do what's best for your kid. Their only incentive is to do what's best for the teacher unions because that's who makes sure they keep getting the money. That's who's down there at the state legislature lobbying those legislators to make sure that they just keep throwing more money. That's all they care about. And what I'm saying to my conservative friends out there is redirect some of that money and empower parents, empower good schools, empower, by creating competition, make it possible for more and more people to get a good education. I think so many people refuse to do this or support this because they're walking in fear, man. They are the faint-hearted. Ronald Reagan said the future belongs to not to the faint-hearted, but to the brave. They're small of strength, as the Bible talks about. Small of strength. They're the problem. They're the reason we're not doing Convention of States and overruling the federal government, not getting these amendments into the Constitution to stop the insanity. They're the reason that the church has become wimpy. They don't use their freedom of religion because if they live out their faith, they have to be bold, and they don't. They have to. Somebody else might live out their faith. It's like school choice. They might take the money and spend it at a school that I don't support. So what? Allow for freedom. School choice empowers people instead of cowering them into submission. And it's the same with all of these other subjects. Let's stop walking around in fear and start walking around bold as lions. I think we lost the culture war because of this timidity, because of this, somebody might do something wrong. Government might regulate the public school or the private schools. You know what? Redirect the dollars and then fight the regulation. And if the regulation comes, stop taking the money. But start playing hardball. We call it a culture war, and we talk about the culture war. And I'm so sorry. I know I got a lot of people on the phones, but I'm just getting off on a tangent here. The culture war has already been lost. Let's be honest. Because they controlled education and we didn't have school choice, they educated 90% of the kids in America to be leftist. And now we've lost the culture war. The left owns every major institution in America. They completely control education, completely control the media. They completely control entertainment. They completely control every federal agency and state agency. They control most of the corporate boards in America, the big companies. They control half the pulpits in America. They won the culture war because we sat on the sidelines like a bunch of wimps and said we didn't want to get involved. We might offend somebody, and we played nice. And now they own all of that, and they've educated 2 generations, 3 generations almost, of civically ignorant people and morally bankrupt people. And we don't want to redirect the dollars now and try to change that and start getting more people educated with civics and morality. These people are not going to leave you alone. I'm telling you, because some people will say, well, you know what? That's fine. Let them have those. Let the public schools burn. Let them have those. They're going to fall apart. That's such a pipe dream. Okay, these leftists are not going to leave you alone. You cannot just go hole up You can't run off to the ranch with your guns and canned food and hope for the best. They are coming for you. They want your children. It is not a live and let live situation. The race is on between us and the left. And if we don't launch a counteroffensive, they won the culture war, now we need a counteroffensive. If we don't do that, we're going to give them a chance to prevent us from being able to launch a counteroffensive. In other words, now that they own all these institutions, now they move to the next level. If you're a student of history, you understand what's happening. They move to the next level, which is where they literally clamp down and tyranny sets in, and you don't have a voice anymore. You have no choices. What I'm pushing for is more choices in order to stop them from being able to lock down society. You're currently their slave, and they don't want to leave you to yourself. And you're their slave because your money goes to support everything that they're doing. And so we've got to fight back in a way where we can actually win. That means economic warfare. Economic war. We don't need a physical war. We don't want a physical war. But economic war means we redirect dollars to where we can win the culture back. That means school choice. That means, if you take a child tax credit right now, then you're taking government money because you're reducing your taxes based on that, right? We need to learn how to play the game. Employee retention credits. If you haven't done that yet and you've got a small business with, any W-2 employees during COVID, you should be getting that employee retention credit and not saying, I don't want to be involved in that. No, that's getting your tax dollars back. By the way, go to patriotacademy.com/ERC if you want to learn how to do that. It's like $25,000 a W-2 employee. It's crazy money. And it's literally redirecting tax dollars. Again, it's economic war. We need this counteroffensive. And there's so many different areas to do it. How you spend your money, who you buy things from. Redirecting your dollars to go to companies that will then turn around and support good candidates, support good policies. We have to start thinking like this. We have to start thinking about turning the tide, and that means changing our habits, spending our money in good places, supporting good companies, and yes, supporting choice. Supporting school choice so that money gets redirected to good schools that are going to teach kids civics and teach them good values. Now, last thing I'll say about this whole war thing, this culture war and this whole, counteroffensive, we're moving in the right direction with increasing the number of people that are actually getting off of the sidelines, out of the stands, and onto the field, actually engaging. And I'm going to throw some numbers out at you as I'm closing today. I want you to think about these numbers, okay? We need 3%. If you think about, the 160 million or so that voted in the last presidential election, we need about 5 million biblical citizens. 5 million biblical citizens. Now, we've trained 1 million with biblical citizenship in modern America through Patriot Academy so far. We need to do 4 million more, okay? We need 5 million of them. We need 100,000 Constitution coaches. We've got about 27,000 right now. And then we need about 10,000 good candidates, okay? Our goal is to do those three, reach those three numbers by the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, which is just 2 years, 230-something days from right now. So I want to end with that today so that'll sink in a little bit. Be thinking about that and what you can do to help us. We do that, and we'll start turning this culture back around. That's the tipping point. Those are tipping point numbers right there, folks. We can do this. We've got to be bold, not fearful, bold. Be strong and of a good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with you, whithersoever thou goest. I'm Rick Green. You've been listening to At the Core.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.